Rob and Dustin. Oh, look at everybody hanging out. Hey guys. Hey Ollie. Wait for Ben to arrive. Other people show up. There's Ben. And Ben, you'll have to unclick your mute button again.
Hello.
Hey. And so a formal disclosure, I'm at the farm I manage in Wisconsin, and the Wi-Fi is a little bit sketchy. So I may freeze up once or twice during the webinar here, but I think the meeting will stay open. So if that does happen, it might happen when you're just talking, Ben, and it's really not a big deal. But we'll do what we need to do. Yeah. Yeah, we actually just got internet here 2 months ago.
Oh, welcome to the real world.
Yeah. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. We will let another few seconds pass by and people can come in here.
Really kind.
There's Dustin. There's Nigel. Hey everybody.
Cool.
Hey Griff. All right. Well, I think we'll get started and people can catch the very beginning on the final replay on YouTube here.
Right.
So most of you know who I am. I am your host of the Professional Permaculture Designer. My name's Pete Wyden. I am a designer myself. I've got a business called Artisan Environments based in Stillwater, Minnesota. And I've been focusing on residential design, moving into farm scale design. I'm managing 160 acres in southwestern Wisconsin now. And today we've got a very special guest, Ben Missimer. Ben came into the group not so long ago, but it was very apparent that he's got some awesome skills to share with us. And in the Professional Permaculture Designer group on Facebook, we were focusing on design, sales, and marketing skills. And I also offer one-to-one mentorship around that and monetizing your business in an ethical way. But we're also incorporating design skills because, of course, as designers, we're always going to be learning, upgrading our skill set. And Ben Missimer here from Pearl River Eco Design has been working with various designers around the country, and especially with Dan Halsey and people from United Designers. And it's very apparent that, Ben, you've got some awesome technological skills, some expertise in drone mapping, aerial imagery, and creating topography from that. Ben's also a licensed drone operator. And I'll let you take it from here, Ben.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on. It's nice to see everybody. Hi. I'm 40 years old, and let me hold on. Let me share my screen. This party started. Yeah. So as Pete mentioned, I've been kind of tutoring under Dan for a while, and I had the opportunity to share with him some of my drone skills that I've been developing as a fledgling designer, realizing the need for accurate topography in my own stuff. So I'm 40 years old. I'm a disabled veteran. I was in the Navy for 8 years. A couple things about me here. I was an aviation electronics technician. And like I said, got out after 8 years. And I wanted to do something that didn't waste my technological background that I had just accrued. And so I had the thought, maybe I'll get into smart home technology. This was back before the economic crash in 2008. And I got out of the military and I went to my local community college and I enrolled in this carpentry program, which was an 8-month type deal where I built 3 Habitat for Humanity homes. And I also had an opportunity to work on the world's largest chimpanzee rescue in Florida. And about around this time, I started learning about permaculture and getting very, very interested. And so, of course, the economy tanked and construction halted. So smart home construction and all that was a miss. So I decided to go back into college where I got a degree in electronics engineering technology. But that core was more catered towards pumping me out into the manufacturing world, like working on conveyor belts for Amazon or something like that. But I wanted to do something that had to do with renewable energy and automation, but like censoring soil moisture and deploying sprinklers or something along those lines, right? And I also had a chance to do photovoltaics, solar panels, and solar hot water heating. I took a couple courses in that. And I also had an opportunity to take 2 semesters in CAD, and I also fooled around and SketchUp a little bit. So after I graduated, I moved back to New Orleans, where my wife is from, where I met her when I was stationed in New Orleans. And so I couldn't find a job in renewable energy like I wanted to, so I had to resort to doing some marine electronics. So I worked on radar systems and gyro compasses and, you know, some pretty crazy stuff. And then I got a job for the Port of New Orleans as one of their crane technicians, which is, you know, they have 6 giant gantry cranes that are 150 feet tall. They're essentially rolling robots. So that was my gig, my last gig before I blew my back out. I had a military injury. That was my 3rd surgery. I had to have a fusion, and I had to kind of deviate from what I've been doing and adapt my skills. So this is kind of the evolution of what brought me here to you guys right now.
I feel like you also got, and Nigel, looks like you might have to click your microphone mute on the bottom. Thanks. You got your first taste, Ben, of some aerial views up on the top of those cranes.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty at times, but it was a 24/7 operation, and 2 o'clock in the morning in a thunderstorm is another story. So when I first moved out to my property, this was like 7-8 years ago, long before my permaculture class. I took Jeff Lawton's online program, and it started like the beginning of 2017. And I was down with my spinal fusion, so it was like really, things lined up perfectly for me to be able to take that class. So I was stoked there. Area recon. Let's talk about area recon a little bit. When we do a site survey, hey, Nigel, your mic went back on, bud.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening there.
Yeah, so when we do some recon on a site that we are aiming to do design work for, we want to gather as much information as possible. It might not be super local, so your time there might be brief, so you want to collect as much from as many vantage points as possible, which is one perk from a drone standpoint. My earliest attempt here, as you can see, my dad flew me here over our property, and I was able to get this view. But then I had a backlit tracing table, but trying to overlay design on top of that by hand I wasn't having it. My earliest fiddlings of trying to create layering effects of having some sort of topography over my property was taking a screenshot of a Google Earth, as you can see, and just a general topography map of the area. You can see the roads here in the picture. I just lined those up, and this was the result. I knew this was wildly inaccurate, so that was kind of disappointing. So at that point, I was like, okay, let's stop playing. Let's get a drone. And there was a slight learning curve on learning how to import into a GIS software. At first, I used QGIS, which is freeware. And right now, I'm playing with ArcGIS, Pro. But these contour lines here are derived from the global DEM, digital elevation model, as part of the National Landsat program. This was, Landsat started in, I believe, 69. The technology was birthed, and then 70 onwards, they started launching satellites, and collectively, the technology got better and better, but they set out to map the globe in greater resolutions as the time went on. But generally from space, shooting from a space shuttle from space, you're only going to get so much resolution. And that through that Landsat program, which I see a lot of people grabbing their digital elevation models from, this is the resolution that you can expect. And I'm going to go into why this is, we need to do better. So let me show you this real quick. These are some shots from my final design exercise to show you kind of where my design work was at the end of my permaculture design course. I learned permaculture, I didn't learn illustration. So I mean, this is kind of rookie. I did this on my iPad, by the way, using concepts. So not bad. It's definitely better than my tracing table. I was getting there.
It's legible, yeah.
So that was, this right here was March of 18. That's where I was at. Not very long ago. So topography, along with other layers that show various things in our maps that we create, topography is one of the biggest important things that we incorporate in layers. This image right here is kind of a cheater. This is okay. So when you process your contour lines, and I'll show you that here shortly. When you process the contour lines, you can export your file as a KMZ file, which is a Google Earth file. So you can share your Google Earth, this image right here, with your clients, and it's kind of neat for them to pull up on their end. And you can take a screenshot, and that's cool in a limited way, but you can't like turn down the color and manipulate it after you take this shot. It's pretty much burned in, you know. So then I tried my hand at a little color work there. So I was talking a little bit about this. So here's an example of a typical topographical map that you can expect. And this data that they made these maps with are derived from that Landsat program. And just like the resolution here is unacceptable to design off of, it's cool if you're just trying to like approach maybe like a 1,000-acre farm and get a general sense of where water is flowing across it. But if you're going to insist that your client follows your guidelines in this map that you took quite a bit of time crafting, when they go and bring their water levels out and their lasers out and start digging, and it's like way off from what you designed, it's just going to look really odd, you know.
Yeah, that's not a fun conversation.
Yeah, no. This was my very first shot at Illustrator, and it was a struggle to get this. Just going tutorial after tutorial, just trying to glean a couple of fundamentals. And it was at that point that I actually used Udemy, but I've since been kind of fond of Skillshare. And this is for all Adobe programs and more, photography, web design, or whatever. Skillshare, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but For like 15 bucks a month, you can learn anything from professionals. So I did quite a bit of that to get the fundamentals of Illustrator down, because I didn't want to approach Dan or bother Dan with a bunch of just rookie basic questions. You know, I had better questions to ask him. So let's talk about tree noise here for a second. When you shoot with a drone, it takes a series of pictures in a set distance, and those pictures overlap. And the overlap of those pictures, right? When you upload hundreds of pictures off to get processed, it's looking at that overlap on the images, and it derives the topographical data from that through stereophotogrammetry. Now, the problem with trees is you get tree noise, and that's this. And importing that into a layer in Illustrator is going to look garbage. So that bothered me, and I needed to find a workaway around that, which I'll show you here in a sec. So tree noise. Now, if you have a lot that's 90%, 80% clear cut, yay, kind of, but for drone purposes, right? But if it's completely wooded, how do you get any solid return from the ground to be able to read that data? You have to rely on LiDAR, or after all the deciduous trees drop their leaves, you could shoot through and pick up the contour lines. It's a little messy, but you can do it. But LiDAR is expensive, and it requires either an aircraft or a UAV and a very expensive gear. What happens a lot of times is municipalities, they'll contract out a crew to go fly missions, and because this is tax-driven finances, and it goes to be a part of the collective topography scans through the USGS, United States Geological Service, and all of those maps are free. So, but LiDAR isn't everywhere. You might be lucky enough to have had a scan done in your area, but if not, then you're gonna have. I would go after a drone if you can get away with it with the tree coverage. So this image right here, I love, because I have my drone data and I have the global DEM data overlapping, so you can really see how heinous and far off. If I was drawing according to these red lines, I mean, it's literally like 8. Look at that.
It's almost 90. It is 90 in some places.
Yeah. So, like I said, we can do better.
So Ben, when you talk about manually scrubbing the trees, are you basically going in with an eraser on that file and just getting rid of the tree noise?
No. What's crazy is all of these little tiny lines there's.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
There's thousands of little broken bits of just chatter and noise.
Right.
I've tried selecting out and deleting, but it's inside of Illustrator, but that took way too long. I found a faster way. So let me check something real quick here. So here's one way. This was my first method right here. So what I did was I took a screenshot inside of Google Earth, and you can do this from different perspectives, which is sometimes cool if you want an angled shot. But essentially, you just take a screenshot, and then you turn the contour lines off, and you just take another screenshot in that exact location, And then you can bring it inside of any sort of layering software on your phone or iPad. It doesn't have to be Illustrator to do it. But you just line those up, and then you erase the tree noise layer, and you're left with a clear behind.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah. And as you can see here, the outline of this house, it's a couple feet off. You see that? I got a pump house here. You see this rectangle? It's kind of, I know it's kind of blurry. It's a couple of feet off. The rotation of it is proper, but okay, so why is it off? Because inside of the drone, it works on the it's got a barometer, and it's not a precise thing. It'll get you close to your XYZ coordinate with all the satellites that's tracking it. But in order to have a higher pinpoint resolution, we're talking down to like 1 centimeter to 3 centimeters. They got these GPS units, RTK GPS units, like the rovers. They got them on poles, and it allows between the drone, the satellites, and that post to triangulate a more precise location. But we're not trying to do a survey for bridges. We're just laying out some simple little earthworks. But at least they're not 90 degrees out, right? So here's an example of a contour that I did. And you can see there's no tree noise here on these trees, but there are here. So that kind of shows you, if you shoot when your deciduous trees drop their litter, you'll get clean lines through your trees. And when you come into a tree like this, I'll show you how we scrub out the tree noise. It's simple to clean up. Let me play a little video for you.
And so everybody knows there is a little chat button at the bottom of your screen, and if you want to type any questions in there while we go, we can get those answered at various points.
Okay. I made this little animation just for you. Yeah. Okay. So here's my place. Okay. So when you're flying an automated flight like this, it disables all of your sensors if your drone happens to have them, and it flies at a level altitude. So this is very important. You want to launch your drone on the uphill side of whatever slope you're at, because you launch on the downhill side and you go up, and you got these trees up here, and you program your flight to fly 100 feet, and it's cruising, and those trees you're eventually going to hit. I've lost my drone in the Smoky Mountains.
Oh, yikes.
It happens. So
R.I.P. drone.
So here's a little screen grab of me setting up some parameters inside of, I use Maps Made Easy, but there's like Drone Deploy and various other, there's a couple other, they're very similar. You set up parameters. These orange dots here are parameters around the site that you want to survey. And see how I'm rotating the path? You don't want to fly with a crosswind pushing you sideways. So you want to fly into the wind, right? So right here, I'm kind of oriented to fly north-south. So if I had an east-west wind, that'd be bad, in other words. Okay, so here's the process at flying. It's not my site. So let's back this up. You see this right here where it's yellow and it jumps to red? It's constantly gauging wind shear, and it's very important that it doesn't blow too hard while it's taking its pictures, because it creates smudging later in the processing when you go to process your drone images to get your files out so you can get your contour and all that. I'll get into that.
Hey Ben, I'm wondering if are you referring to the still image in Illustrator or a video that's on your screen right now?
The video. Is that
Oh,
what you're saying?
okay. Yeah, for some reason we're not. No, for some reason we're not seeing the video. I don't know why.
Oh, oh.
I don't know if
Well,
you have multiple screens. There we
how
go.
about now?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the animation I was talking about.
Okay.
My bad. Let me just catch you up. Yeah. So I'm setting up a perimeter here. I'm sorry. I forgot to
That's
hit
fine.
share. All right.
We got it figured out.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, right here. So right here where it's red, it's screaming because it's flying to its first point, but it's constantly gauging the wind shear. And there's a difference in drones and their strength of flight. So I'm shooting with a Phantom 4 drone versus like a Mavic Pro. It's the Mavic's out a little bit. This is something to consider when you're pricing out or trying to choose drones. So I'll bring this up. Their motors are a little bit weaker, and when you do a process like this where it's fighting wind for stability for an accurate path, then you might have issues on a windy day where I can go out there and just not really sweat it too hard. And it will constantly adjust its speed. So those little dots, it's the little gray dots, those are the pictures it's taking.
Is there a certain reason why it's taking 2 pictures at the edge?
Yeah, I see that. Just to ensure that it has that border, I guess, from both angles. I'm not sure. And oh, this is very important. You have to hover over the ground and take a picture of the ground and include that. Like this thing, it just flew a mission probably 100 or so feet in the ground. Now, if I flew that off, or not flew it off, if I sent it off for processing, because that barometer isn't accurate, right? It might have your elevation placed lower than it actually is. So if you were to say send off a Google Earth file to a client and they open it up, they're like, I don't see anything. Yeah, because it's under the ground. You can go in and later and fix that file to say, no, it's actually this elevation and bring it above ground. But taking that picture of the ground, hovering just above the ground, and including that in your file set, your picture set, will snap it to the ground. So when you then send your images off to be processed, depending on the resolution, how low you are flying to the ground, how many pictures, the lower you are to the ground, the more pictures it takes to encompass that perimeter. And I usually fly like 120 feet or so off the ground. And I seem to get pretty good resolution off of that without spending too much money and points for processing. So this is an image of a digital elevation model that I'm inside of QGIS about to pull the contour lines out of. I'm in and out of this program within a couple of minutes. It's just GIS software, whether it's ArcGIS or QGIS, it can do all sorts of cool stuff. But for what I need it for, you could do like simulations and really cool visual stuff that would, it would help you convey things in permaculture for sure. I'm not there yet, but I can pull a contour line out of a DEM file. That's easy. So here, so that black background, I just turn it off, and then I'm left with this contour lines and all this noise. Okay. So here I am pulling it inside of Illustrator now, and I'm just scaling it up to size, lining it up. Now you see, can you see this yellow box around
Yeah.
this house? Yeah. I don't worry about holding down shift and keeping the scale. I just get the borders right. And if I'm able to, if that house is squared up inside that little box, everything else should be scaled out. Close, super close.
Is this base image, this aerial image that you're using to overlay the contours on, is this from the drone or from a different source?
All this tree noise,
I mean the actual orthophoto, the photograph
yeah,
itself.
this is the result of that, and it gives you a bunch of tree noise.
I'm referring to, so I get the contour information's from the drone processing.
Mm-hmm.
What is the actual photograph of the land from?
Okay, well, that you can get from, sometimes I'll skim it from Google Earth.
Okay.
So this is the thing. So my property, I think it was like 180 images. It's stitched. One of the files that you get when you process your images is a mega JPEG. That's like, mine was like 80 megabytes, huge. It's kind of cumbersome and large of a file to bring into Illustrator. It makes it bog down.
Mm-hmm.
But you could, and because it's a stitched image, working with the stereo photogrammetry images, in processing when they come together, sometimes the outside of like a roof edge or a car, you'll see a slight distortion. It's not a clean, crisp image. And in the base image, you want to turn that way down to a non-distracting level anyway. I'm going to show you how I scrub the tree noise. Now I use my iPad for this inside of Concepts with an iPen. I have a Wacom pad, but looking at the screen while you have a pen to paper, there's a disconnect there that's kind of hard to work with. So pressing directly on the screen in my iPad and making lines is kind of nifty in this especially. So this is a screenshot of me scrubbing the tree noise out. Might take, depending on the size, this probably took me a half an hour.
And then so when you're scrubbing out the tree noise, and then basically you're extrapolating based on where the contours are outside of that scrubbed area, you're kind of connecting them.
Yeah, I'm drawing through the trees. There's a little gap in the trees. There's a little gap in the shrub where you can pick up where that line dropped off, and then you can through it.
Okay.
I mean, you see all the garbage right there. I'm just tracing out my contour lines. And if there's a fence line, if there's a pump house, if there's something permanently fixed there that you can, like this, I drew a rectangle around my pump house, right? That's going to come in handy here in a second. So now I jump forward because I'm not going to do it. I didn't screen record it the first time I did it, but this is essentially my property traced out. And I didn't use the pump house. I used my guest house. I made a rectangle here. And I can export this in a PDF. Now there's two types of PDF, one flattened and one that will encompass the vector paths, which is nifty because that I can treat the individual lines as vectors inside of Illustrator.
Which makes it so you can manipulate them, do what you want to.
Change the opacity, thickness, color, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So here I just drug it into, and I drug it into Illustrator, and I'm sizing it off of that house, and boom, I got my contour lines clean.
Do you feel like for the entire property this was accurate? Were there areas where the tree noise really got in the way, or other structures, objects messed it up in some way?
No. These are straight. These are pretty accurate.
Cool.
Very accurate. Deadly accurate.
So there was a question, Ben, and if you want to save it for later, if you're in the middle of an idea, but people were wondering what would be a good place to start for, like a starter drone, like an inexpensive piece of equipment that's going to get you started.
I wouldn't advise it.
You wouldn't?
Nope.
Because it's just the quality's not there.
The only thing that it was good for was hovering just long enough for me to shoot out of the sky with my shotgun.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to,
Well, I hope it was fun.
Yeah. Oh, you took my $300, you bastard. It's like $300, $600 models. I don't know. There's a consumer grade, there's a prosumer grade, and there's a hardcore professional grade.
Okay.
I would dabble in the prosumer range. You can get away with a Maverick, maybe a used one. You might be able to get in around 800 or 1,000. You can get maybe a used Mavic with a battery or two or something like that to get started. But
okay.
DJI isn't the only platform for drones or doing this type of stuff. It's really the only one I can speak to personally. But something in, what's the other, I can't even think of the other brands.
And so, to actually, just to continue on that kind of getting started tangent,
what you got?
To actually fly a drone over anyone's property, is it required to be licensed?
No.
Okay.
So
that it's basically, if you're doing it as a service, it has to be you have to be licensed.
If you are going to, well, according to the rules, right, the laws, if you're going to make money in any way, right?
Okay.
Whether you're taking pictures with your drone or shooting surveys with your drone or using it to do permaculture stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If there's money exchange, then they want you to be licensed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you should always check with your neighbors, well, wherever you're at, around the perimeter, because people get kind of freaked out sometimes when drones are up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other questions so far?
Let's see. There might be. Dustin was wondering, I think it was is it called Cubase? He was wondering if you were using Maps Made Easy software. What are for your workflow, what is the software that you're preferring to use?
I use Maps Made Easy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's it's the only one I can speak to, really. But I've never had a problem with them, and it's pretty cheap and easy to use. So yesterday I flew a mission. I went to a farm, and I got home at probably 2, uploaded my files, and I had them processed in like 3-4 hours. So they have a pretty quick turnaround time. Not too bad.
Cool.
There's different tiers of payments. You can have tier one is low priority, and they have just, you know, two other priority modes depending on how much you pay. You might bump somebody in tier one, but I've
Okay.
never had to wait longer than overnight to have my files back.
That's great. And then Rob's curious about airspace issues, getting
Hmm.
permission to fly over certain areas.
Right. So I use Sky Vector. Is a really nice web-based map for aviators that shows all the airspaces that you may or may not be flying in. But there's built-in software too that will tell that should, you know, again, through my drone DJI in their software, they're sky aware of where you're at and if you're in a fly zone. But as a licensed drone operator, that doesn't necessarily mean you're, if you are in a particular airspace, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not able to enter or work inside of it. But there are things that you need to know as a licensed operator, um, to make sure you stay in your airspace. And even if you're right on top of an airport, you can request permission through the air traffic controller there and coordinate with them for those flights. So,
Okay.
is there any other questions on that, or?
Um, well, there's other questions in general, but
Okay.
not directly on
Hit me up.
airspace
What you
issues.
got?
Yeah, Dustin was curious for, you know, someone who's mainly a designer. Would you suggest learning how to do this, you know, on by oneself to be able to do it for yourself, your own designs, or hiring a professional each time based on your experience? Um, yeah.
Well, um, so it's it depends on how much money and time, I would say. If you really want to get involved with it, there is a learning curve. Um, I've been home on workers' comp this whole time, so I've been able to pretty much crack out on it 24/7, and, you know, hours and hours of tutorial after tutorial to get me where I'm at. It might take somebody working a 9 to 5 a little bit longer to embrace the technology and learn the software and learn your hardware to get where I'm at. But that's not to say it's impossible. Um, but maybe that's something that you can work towards. But in the meantime, it doesn't necessarily box you out from being able to incorporate your work inside of digital design. Um, so, like what I do with Dan, right? Um, I handle his drone processing and incorporating the topography, and I've been working up base maps for him. So, like, I could do that for really any designer, even if they aren't going to work in Illustrator, period. If they're just a hand-drawn designer, right? They can. So what we could do is digitally capture their space and work up a rendering of it, right, in the space map, where they would have highly accurate topography data, and then, you know, we could print that out in a giant, you know, 3 foot laminated picture that they can then work over with a sheet of vellum or a grease pencil, sketch out their concepts, and work their own permaculture design out over it, and just take a picture of that, and then, you know, we could process that out as well. So they have a not just a base map rendered in Illustrator, but we could bring up their design standards a little bit inside of Illustrator while you guys work on um, securing finances to be able to buy the software and buy the hardware, which is something that I'm going to be going over here in a little bit in the process. I go over what the costs are and some of the equipment used commonly in this type of work.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'll I'll let you get moving on with the presentation then.
Okay. Boom. Okay, so here is this is the first thing that I helped Dan with. This is what, like, I was like, oh man, after I processed the pictures for him, it was nothing but shrubbery, like little, I think it was out in Texas if I remember.
Oh yeah.
It was just dry and little shrubby brush everywhere. It just ate up the contour. Now you can see the contour pops open here, and then back to bush, and then back to contour. So one of the files that you get when you process your imaging is one of these colorized digital elevation models that help you see the elevation step down colorfully. So it kind of helps you ring it out like that. And here I am tracing it inside of concepts. And this is that's the finished result, right? And then, here we go. Sorry, I'm hitting wrong on my keys. So here it is brought into design. And here's a little spiel. I'll just read it out loud. Appropriate technology. Are we Amish? Do we lack or shun technology? Is it not our responsibility to give our very best efforts towards the task that lays before us? By exploiting the technologies that are available and combining various specialized efforts, what can be achieved is quite stunning. Designers steer the vision. We convey thought. Inspire, find understanding and agreement. Right? We need it as sexy, as automated, professional, and as compartmentalized with as many niche skills as possible. I'm a fledgling permaculture designer, right? I have a pretty good technology background, but as far as, like, I don't have a background at working with trees. I don't particularly have a green thumb. That's a shortfall on my end. But if I worked with a designer maybe high in that niche, right, and I elevated them with illustrated design, and they elevated me with extremely well thought out pairings inside of polyculture type systems. We need to work together like that, because it's just A plus plus all the way across our design, right?
Mm-hmm.
So an assembly of skills and a coordinated effort that can run through the process of design. We need legions of design guilds laying out the transitional guidance that's greatly needed in our world. Licensed drone operators, maybe a sales team, broad spectrum marketing, plant specialists, polyculture designers, regional team leaders, tree and seed source agents, digital designers, GIS specialists, installers, earth movers, monitoring and upkeep of the systems that we install, event coordinators, grant writers. Like, you asked me earlier, somebody thinking about going into learning these technologies. If that's a calling to them, yeah, sure, cool, and we can help get them trained up and be fluent in that respect. Mm-hmm. But is it taking away from something that you're like uber talented in, that you could, your time might be better spent collaborating with a team? So I don't know, you got to put that on your own scale, right? So using the natural, and you've been talking with Dan about this on your webinars about using the natural capital plant database. Mm-hmm. As far as streamlining your design and cutting down on time and repetitive tasks, I was drawn to Dan right away when I saw him doing these types of things. So I can't recommend it any more.
I really I appreciate you putting this in here, Ben, because it's interesting. I just naturally gravitated. I actually did a vegetable polyculture course with Dan about 6 years ago. That's how I first met him in the Twin Cities. But as I moved forward with learning design, sales, and marketing and actually getting the work, then once I figured that out, I realized, wow, I really want to up level my, my rendering, my actual design process for permaculture design, because to do it professionally and in a way that's really efficient, but also effective and still tailored to a specific site and client's needs, et cetera. I wouldn't be, part of the United Designers Group or, talking about it so much if it wasn't so helpful to me, because I don't make any money like promoting it. I totally agree with you on how useful this stuff is, these tools that he and other people have developed. And I also really appreciate this acknowledgement and conversation around different people having their niche within the kind of the unfolding of this really more high level, sophisticated permaculture design that's very approachable for a lot of different groups of people who want and need this practical approach to our management and planning of landscapes. But also it invites in a lot of different types of people who have an interest in regeneration and in a more fulfilling career that applies engineering, marketing, computer technology, plants, soils, you name it. It really is it's a whole economy that's being created around this. So that's a really awesome perspective.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back here. Yeah. So Daniel Halsey's style of design, how it's visually illustrated, and how he fills up design based on size and ecological function is about as automated and functional as you can get in permaculture design. Having a pre-made digital forest of trees to scale, ready to drop upon a base map, is the move to make. So this is where I'm at now with my property and my design work in general. After I learned the fundamentals of Illustrator and started asking Dan more pointed questions as far as how he tweaks his maps and uses the automated process that he kind of has set up here. It's been quite a journey this last year. Let me play this for you. You'll like this.
Break out the popcorn.
It's a little short one here. Hold on. Here we go. Hold up. Okay.
I'm just imagining a wall of screens in front of you.
Yeah. Here's my wall of screens. Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Sorry. And
I recognize that place.
yeah.
This is Dan's house in Minnesota, for those of you who don't know.
I think this was in November.
Yeah.
I was up there. And I had a chance to do a little portion on drone technology for the class there. So let me play this for you.
My ulterior motive in all these classes is to build these teams. We all speak the same language. We're all working in a fairly similar system. We have some people that are working in QGIS, some people are working in CAD, right? But we need all that stuff. So the idea is that we all have a common language, have a common understanding, and then we can actually work together on these big projects. And every once in a while, everybody gets to travel somewhere and see something cool. And then have all of your preconceived notions and all your biases just basically pounded out of your brain. It's pretty amazing. Create our teams of designers that can work together so none of us ever have to say no to a project.
Yeah, that's looks like you're.
Yeah, I'm just.
Oh, you're back.
I'm back.
That's an important piece for me as well. Is like for this farm that I'm managing, for example, we're writing some grants to actually get a large scale and well documented and detailed plan done for this whole site. But it's way more than I can do myself or would want to. So to be able to bring in other people and to help on this stuff, it's essential to do better design and also just really make it manageable. So I totally agree with that.
Right. So and if you're like a hand drawn designer, you might kind of I don't know, if you want to put in a bid, right, and show your design, they're going to be looking at it on the table amongst other designs. You want a nice rendered, illustrated drawing to convey thought and compete in that space. But you might not have all the hardware and software and know-how to bring your design up to that level. So that's like he said, there shouldn't be anything that you should feel you can't go after. Just know that you have a solid team backing you with a diverse headset skills. So this is Dan's United Designers Facebook page. So aside from conducting surveys for the topography of your spaces that you're trying to recon, videos and just still pictures, progress shots, right? These are all dynamite things to capture with the drone. And we want to show the world what we're doing in stellar fashion, right?
And Ben, am I right in recalling that you're in Mississippi?
Yes.
In the U.S., yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to say like 37 miles north of the Gulf Coast.
Okay. It's a beautiful spot.
Thank you. So another thing I like to do when I'm on site, especially if I'm not going to be there for quite some time and I want to kind of bring myself back to that space, is I'll use my drone to take 360 panoramic images, which is like it will hover and take 34 images, I believe, and stitch them together in a globe that you can kind of immerse yourself in later to probe that space.
So you use that when you're not at home if you're thinking about a certain design feature or something?
Yeah. Hold on here. There we go. Sorry.
My ulterior motive in all these classes.
Okay. So let me show you this video I made here. It showcases some of that 360 pano and shows you what you can do with the drone.
This is some of Ben's original music, as far as I understand. Yeah. Is this on your website yet, Ben?
No, that's another thing I'm working on.
Cool. Yeah, this is
on
really
my
fun.
YouTube channel though.
Okay. Is your YouTube channel your name, Ben Missimer?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is that you on the tractor?
No, that's my neighbor.
Okay, I was wondering who was flying the drone. Wow. How many hours of fly time do you have on a charge?
About 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Collectively, I've flown over 24 hours. Yeah, so you can see like
That's really cool.
right in here, I got some 360. That's a
Okay. Yeah.
so. Anyway, let me get back to the Illustrator screen here.
That's a really fun video.
Thanks.
I dig the tunes.
So here I am lasering in some contour lines. This little tractor, man, if you guys are shopping tractors, this is the move right here.
Is it a Kubota?
Yeah. I'll have 580 tons of holding capacity.
Wow.
With all my swells and chinampas. I've dug with it. All right, so let's talk about some financial hurdles here. My drone was $1,500, and I got four batteries that are $170. My travel case is like another $150. Let's see what else. Different filters. I paid this online class. It was $150. Remote Pilot 101. If you guys want to pursue a drone license, I recommend these people. They teach the test, exactly what you need to know, and it's good stuff. I passed no problem. It's another $150 for the license fee, and those memory cards aren't necessarily cheap either. Now, when I started all this, I was working with like a 2013 iMac, and I also have a MacBook Pro, which is slightly newer, but I've had to kind of abandon those because they don't have the raw power I need. So if you're going to buy a drone that can fly and take 4K videos, but your computer chokes on processing and rendering 4K video, right? That's a problem. But not just for, like, I work in Premiere Pro and Adobe Premiere for my video, doing my video work, but I was having it just crash and seize up, and it was garbage. So I had to build my own computer. So when you're looking at using computer software, you want to go to the manufacturer's website and look at the minimum system requirements, and look at your computer's your actual hardware that you have on board, and compare that to the minimum requirements. And if you're just barely getting by, you're probably going to be frustrated.
Yeah, it really is amazing how much it affects the
I mean, we're talking
experience.
like it just freezing up, you're losing work, it locks up, it might free up, but the process can literally double the time that you're in there trying to do illustration or whatever, so these types of things require machinery that has a little bit of flex to it. Mine's pretty hardcore. I built it to be able to render 3D, and I didn't want to be bound in any of my endeavors, So these are the components that I went and bought and I built, put my computer together here. The software, I have the whole suite of Adobe. And that's like $600 annual. If you just want AI, that's $240. If you're a student, you get a student discount. But I use Premiere Pro, I use Lightroom, I use Illustrator, Photoshop. I mean, there's a couple of things I don't. But to buy them individually, it's more than $600. So I just get everything. And just the cost for training, like I said, if you wanted to seek out Udemy or Skillshare or something like that, and just crunch those tutorials, that's on you. Or if you just want to punt that out and have somebody else process it for you, it probably would be a lot cheaper for sure. I have almost 24 hours of flight time, and there's, like I said, those batteries are 20 minutes to pop. My drone license there. Is there any questions on the software or hardware side and pricing?
I don't think we've got any questions on that right now. I also do the subscription to Illustrator. I had to upgrade to the latest version because I was using CS6 and it was just too slow. And when you're working with, say a group like United Designers or collaborating with other people, it's really ideal to have the most up-to-date stuff so people don't have to save down for you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we don't have any specific questions right now on the software, hardware stuff.
I'm scrubbing through some questions right now. Would you suggest learning how to do this if you're a designer or hiring a pro each time? I don't know if that was the question that you had asked me earlier.
We
right.
went over that before.
I use DJ software, but a lot of sites could be within a 5 mile radius, I guess, of small airports. Yeah. Yeah, that Sky Vector. Check that out, Google Sky Vector. That shows you all of the airports and flight paths. So, okay. Dustin, I'm actually looking for people in, I guess, okay, I'm sorry.
I think he might have been sending me a message because we're both in Minneapolis. And I actually haven't I haven't used drone footage for my designs yet. Now that I'm seeing more and more of it, especially how accurate it is on the contours, as I'm starting to work in larger projects, it's something I'm seriously interested in. So Nigel was wondering about bringing stuff into Inkscape. I'm guessing that's Inkscape and OpenGIS, maybe some free software options.
Yeah. I breathe like just for a millisecond screwed with Inkscape, trying to just play with different layering type softwares before I just bit the bullet and jumped on Illustrator. So I don't know what about Illustrator or Inkscape now?
I think Nigel's just curious about using these for Inkscape or OpenGIS software for this type of work.
Right. I imagine you can import just like you would in Illustrator for sure. I mean, it's just, if that's how you're going to get by doing digital illustrations, period, or you're trying to move towards Illustrator eventually when the money comes or what, but
yeah, my experience has been if it's going to be something that's you're interested in doing professionally, and especially building up the volume of work that you'll be doing, it's best to start in one and move onward. And so I don't know exactly what the goal would be in using the free version, but that's been my experience. I've used a lot of different CAD software and different types of tools for my work, but it's been easiest just to start with the one that has the most people using it in the industry, and then just get really efficient with that system.
Well, when I was doing my final design exercise, I was scanning the internet for examples of finished works, to draw inspiration and see what types of different styles were available out there. And when I saw Dan's digital illustrations, I was like, that's what's up right there. Because I've seen illustrations in Inkscape, I've seen illustrations in CAD and in SketchUp, and now Illustrator is where it's at. If you're going to learn any software, there's a learning curve to be had, and it's a pain in the ass. And if you're going to learn how to, I mean, there's some similarities across but it's a whole different animal, and it requires a lot of time and frustration hacking through tutorials to get it. I'd rather just do all that in Illustrator. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, Illustrator has a lot of different capabilities, and it's very customizable in the appearance of how you're doing things, and the way the layers work as well. It's really, really helpful to keep things organized, because when you have a big file, and like you said with this, the drone processing or whatever, and for my computer, I'm mostly just using Illustrator, but I need a really fast computer to be able to process that stuff, and so that I can work 6 hours straight on a design and not get burnt out after 2 because my computer's trying to load. So
Right. Yeah, right.
So we're
That's when you get the shotgun out.
yeah, right. We're about out of time, so I don't know if there's
Okay.
any last stuff you wanted to go over, Ben.
No. Let's see. That was pretty much. Actually, hold up. Here is my last slide, and this is my business card essentially, but it's got my information on here. If you want to screenshot that, if you need drone support, I'm mobile. I could fly in or drive if it's relatively close, I guess. Or if you have somebody that can drone your place for you, and you just need the files handled and imported into a base map or anything like any part of the process.
Hey Ben, I'm just gonna interrupt quick. I'm gonna go say goodbye to the people I'm staying with quick, but you can keep talking if that's all right with you. It's like it just froze. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if you heard that. I'm gonna go say goodbye to my farm friends quick. They're heading out.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right back.
No problem. Okay, so let me go back to the questions. I'm looking at the question screen. Does anybody have any other questions? No. Okay, well. So, does anybody looks like Rob's got a drone. There you go. That's cool.
All right. Anything?
I shook the tree for more questions, but everybody seems content.
Okay, awesome. And did you mention how people can get in touch with you, Ben, if they want to ask you questions, learn, or work with you on processing footage?
Sure. So here's my business card. You can screenshot that. You can reach me at benmissimer@gmail.com. If you have
Awesome.
some follow-up questions, or you can find me at Pearl River Eco Design on Facebook.
Perfect. Very cool. Yeah, so I think we'll wrap up with that. Ben, this was really awesome, and I'm excited to follow your Facebook page with the updates there, because this is just really just the beginning for all this.
Yes, this is early in the game.
Yeah, so you guys can find us back on the Professional Permaculture Designer Facebook page that I'll be hosting, and you'll get more design, sales, and marketing advice and experience from me there, and we'll be infusing that with some more design skills as well as we move forward. And also, if you're interested in talking about one-to-one business mentorship, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook via personal message. So really excited to see you guys back in the Facebook group. Ben, this was just awesome. I'm really amped up about incorporating the design. Yeah, you bet.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Have a great weekend, everybody. See you later.